Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 20th, 2012 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It is my privilege to call this meeting to order. I would point out that we have copies of our agenda on either side of the room. If anyone here in the audience would like to pick up a copy and follow along, please do so. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to items that are on our agenda tonight, as well as an opportunity for comments of a general nature. It is our custom, particularly on this Thanksgiving edition of the Village Council, it is our custom to begin our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this point in time, I would ask everyone to please rise and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to ask our fine village clerk to please call the roll.
Commissioner Rankin? Here. Commissioner Barnett?
Here.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Here.
Commissioner Durkin?
Here.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Here.
Commissioner Schnell? Here. Mayor Tully?
Here. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 3 of our agenda, which pertains to minutes of prior council meetings, and we have one set of minutes to review and adopt tonight, and those are our council meeting minutes from our November 13th, 2012 regular meeting, which was just last week. Wow, it seems like it was a long time ago. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections to that set of minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Those minutes are approved as presented. I will pause at this point in time to read a proclamation which is going to be reflective or acknowledging one of the many exciting things that will be happening this weekend in Downers Grove, and I'm sure we'll be hearing about all of them later tonight. But I'd like to start with this one in celebration of Small Business Saturday. Whereas November 24th, 2012 is Small Business Saturday, a nationwide campaign to spur business for small merchants. And whereas Small Business Saturday is a day to come together in support of the small businesses that we love. And whereas small businesses are comprised of the shops and restaurants that employ our neighbors and reinvest our money close to home. And whereas small businesses are the heartbeat of our community and local economy. Now therefore, I, Martin T. Tully, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim Saturday, November 24th, 2012, as Small Business Saturday in the Village of Downers Grove, and urge all citizens to support businesses in Downers Grove this holiday season. And we have our favorite head of the Downtown Management Corporation, Ms. Linda Kunze, here tonight. I would invite her to come up as a very public and wonderfully enthusiastic face of our downtown merchants and present this proclamation to you. In honor of Small Business Saturday, I'd like to give you this proclamation.
Thank you.
Best of luck. Start with the shopping, and I don't know if you wanted to say anything at the podium or not.
Well,
No obligation, but be my guest.
of course, thank you.
The one thing we always promote is our own local economy.
I would just like to officially say thank you to you, Mayor Tully, and the council for supporting this special event and shopping locally in our town and keeping our money in Downers Grove. So thank you very much for this proclamation tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you very much. And I'll just add, as I know my colleagues also believe, that we often get requests and suggestions, shall I say, from our residents about what should or shouldn't be in the downtown, and the most powerful way that you can indicate or encourage what there should be in the downtown is by supporting the businesses that you'd like to be there. And so by shopping local, by putting your money back in our local economy, it's probably the strongest vote you have in terms of what businesses, retail, and services that you have available here in our downtown and throughout our other commercial corridors, because with all due respect, Ms. Kunze, we love the downtown. It is the heart and soul of the community, but we have lots of other commercial corridors that we hope everyone will frequent on Small Business Saturday. So thank you very much for being here and for all the good work that you do. All right, very good. Thank you. That brings us to item 4 on our agenda tonight, which is our segment for public comments, particularly comments of a general nature with respect to items not appearing on our agenda tonight. And so if you have any questions or comments that are of a general nature, please come down to the podium, give us your name and address, and we'd love to hear from you. And speaking of the economy and economic development, Mr. Casa, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Michael Casa, President of the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation, 2001 Butterfield Road, Suite 120 in Downers Grove. Pleased to talk about a new business that's going to be opening in our community. It's called Grundfos. If you haven't heard of it, it's a firm that is based in Denmark. They are an international manufacturer of water pumps. In fact, they have 50% market share worldwide in that industry. They're going to be moving their North American headquarters from Kansas to Downers Grove. In fact, their headquarters office will be in the building that I'm in at 2001 Butterfield Road in Esplanade. And their Downers Grove office will employ 40 here at their North American headquarters. A few pieces of information about this company. They had worldwide sales last year of $4 billion. They employ more than 20,000 people in 20 countries, and they do business in 80 countries. And as I mentioned, they have a 50% market share in their industry. This morning I spoke to their CEO, the office of their CEO for Grundfos North America. His name is Mr. Jess Monk Hansen, and he would like me to arrange a call with the mayor so that we can formally welcome him to town. They're very excited about making the move. And this is a good example of, I think, a real opportunity for Downers Grove, and that's to attract foreign-owned firms to our community, something that I had a lot of experience in when I was doing economic development work in Michigan, and I believe that there's an opportunity here for us to attract, especially foreign-owned firms that are looking for a U.S. headquarters. We've been starting to talk about that at our executive committee meetings at the EDC, and there'll be more that we'll talk to you about that in the months to come. So happy to welcome them to town, and very happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Casa, for sharing that terrific news. We're always glad to see world-class companies choose Downers Grove as their headquarters, as many others have. And I have to mention, Grundfos is right on top of things, because earlier today, I, through my Twitter account, tweeted out a story from the local media about the fact they were choosing Downers Grove as their headquarters. And Grundfos, their social media folks are all over it, because they picked up on it and sent me a note back saying, thank you for the words of welcome. We are looking forward to the move come spring. So if you want to follow them, they're already on social media at Grundfos USA. No, that was great. They're out there, they're on top of things, and they're ready to go. So we look forward to dealing with them more in person. Thank you for the announcement.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments of a general nature from any members of the audience? Any questions or comments with respect to matters that are not appearing on our agenda tonight? Very well, not hearing any. We'll move to item 5, public hearings. We have no public hearings tonight, so we'll skip right along to the consent agenda, which is item 6. And 2 items have been taken off the consent agenda for separate consideration by the council. Those are items 6E as in Edward and 6I as in Isaac. So with those 2 items placed off to the side temporarily, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as adjusted or modified?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to any of the items on the modified consent agenda? Any questions or comments from any members of the village council? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The modified consent agenda passes unanimously. Next, should I take these 2 together, or do you want to do them separately? What's the recommendation? Separately? We'll do it separately. Do I have a motion to authorize an agreement with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois for stop-loss coverage as presented? This was formerly item 6E as in Edward.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments from any members of the audience? Questions or comments from any members of the village council? Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Just FYI, I was the one that requested that we remove this from the consent agenda. I know Blue Cross and Blue Shield has been a big name in the insurance industry, and I know staff is recommending it, and it came by way of our paid consultant. But I've had to deal with Blue Cross and Blue Shield for a number of years. My personal experiences with them have been terrible, and I'm not alone in my opinion. I know of others that have had, and sadly enough, it's similar experiences. A wide range of different things that happen. They're all like similar stories. So I know I'm not alone in my opinion. I know, I see the same type of things on the social media. The Better Business Bureau, I looked them up. They're rated an F. They've been ordered to example, to pay the state of Illinois $25 million in a lawsuit that affect, because of their treatment of affecting sick children in Illinois to boost their bottom line. So it's easy for a consultant to pick a large company like this, but based on my own experiences, I'm just not comfortable. I don't think I could vote in favor of an agreement with a company like this. And I care about our employees, and I just don't want them to go through the same type of hassles and hurdles that I hear that are out there. And so I think sending at least one no vote, at least some concern out there, hopefully might send some kind of a message to them. And to the general public, I know anyone who's had a claim handled by them, it almost seems like their first reaction is to reject. And I find them very good at making people jump through hoops. So if you ever file a claim with them and they reject you the first time and you think it's unfair, you got to keep after them. But anyway, based on those experiences, I just wouldn't feel comfortable voting in favor of an agreement like this. Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner
And
Schnell.
this also goes for the second item as well, so I won't speak to it again.
For 6I.
Right.
Thank you. Commissioner Schnell.
I actually have a question of staff. Have our employees had any major problems with Blue Cross Blue Shield?
No, our experience has been very positive. The staff reaction in processing medical claims has been extremely well received and minimal to no complaints. It's important to understand that we are self-funded, and the program that Blue Cross Blue Shield is administering is our program, and the staff is the ultimate decision maker, Enza and I. So really they're administering a program that we're defining, and so our experience has been vastly different than that, Commissioner Waldeck.
I mean, obviously we all care about employees, and we're trying
Yes,
to,
we do.
give them benefits that are important, that enhance their quality of life. So you don't want something that obviously is not going to be good, but I didn't think staff would recommend something that,
Correct.
had not been at least FOD. So that's fine. That's all I need to know.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from members of the council? I was going to ask a similar question as Commissioner Schnell, is that, as I understand it, it's two completely different programs.
Correct.
And I understand completely and respect Commissioner Waldeck's vote of conscience, if you will, based on his own personal experience, but just so that everyone else out there understands, our employees are participating in a very different program than the one that apparently Commissioner Waldeck has had less than desirable experiences with. And since I suspect that both the village attorney and village manager have their own families in these plans, that you probably have a strong motivation to make sure that it's being handled properly.
Well, I might say that, if I may, that the program that I'm with is not a personal insurance either. It's also employee-based.
Right, we won't name the company that it's through.
Correct.
This commercial disparagement is a very bad thing.
We won't do that, but, yeah, I understand.
Any other questions or comments? All right, then roll call on that item, please.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Nay?
Mayor Tully?
Aye, the matter passes 6-1. Next, may I have a motion to authorize an agreement with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois as presented, which was the former item 6I as in Isaac.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this item from any members of the audience? Any questions or comments from the village council? Understanding Commissioner Waldeck's earlier comments apply to this item as well. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Nay?
Mayor Tully?
Aye, the matter also passes 6-1. That brings us to the end of our consent agenda and on to item 7, which is our active agenda. We have one item on our active agenda, 7A. Do I have a motion to approve a proposed establishment of Special Service Area Number 5 Atwood subdivision?
Mayor Tully, I move to adopt an ordinance proposing the establishment of a special service area number 5 in the village of Jacksonville, Illinois, and providing for a public hearing and other procedures connection with as presented.
Second.
Just clarify something, we're actually establishing it with this motion. We're not proposing the
We are
establishment.
proposing this one. This is another one. This is number 5. It's just proposed.
Okay, thank you. So, all right. I got out the red pen too quickly, thank you.
Further down.
All right, I got you, thank you. Just making sure you're staying awake over there. Questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this item? Any questions or comments from members of the village council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter passed unanimously. It brings us to the end of our active agenda on to item 8, which is our first reading or our workshop agenda. We have several items, 4 to be exact, on our first reading agenda tonight. These are items that are being presented for discussion and consideration only and for potential action at a later point in time. As is customary, I'll turn this segment of the meeting over to Village Manager David Fieldman for a presentation. Mr. Fieldman.
Thank you, Mayor Tully. Speaking of establishing a special service area, the first item on tonight's first reading agenda is an ordinance establishing special service area number 4 for the Green Acres subdivision. And here to present the background information on this item is our Community Development Director, Tom Dabereiner.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Dabereiner.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this is the reverse of what we just talked about. This is actually establishing special service area number 4 by ordinance for the Green Acres subdivision. Just to remind everybody, here's the location along Fairview Avenue, south of 63rd, north of 66. That's the area we're talking about, and the affected area is shown right here, with the retention area in the southeast corner, the lower right-hand side of that area enclosed in red. So the ordinance is the last step in the process to establish a special service area, this one being number 4. That process began in August 21st, here at the podium with a proposal to establish this SSA, and it serves as a safeguard in the event that the homeowners association cannot or does not maintain the subdivision's detention area, which again is the lower right-hand side in the enclosed red-lined area. Probably shouldn't refer to it as a red-lined area. That has other implications. The village proposes a maximum annual rate not to exceed 3% of the property's equalized assessed value as a tax levy. With that, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from any members of the audience with respect to this item? The Green Acres subdivision proposed a special service area number 4. Any questions, comments from members of the village council? I'll just point out that I know we've said this before, that this is a best practice that we've established when these new subdivisions with these detention areas are created going forward. It's unfortunate that this hadn't been thought of 20 years ago, because it probably could have addressed some other issues we might be talking about tonight, but can't go back in time. But going forward, this is a best practice which establishes a mechanism by which, if things fall into disrepair, there is a mechanism by which they can be maintained in the way they should be. But this is being done literally from scratch at the ground floor. So, thank you.
The next item is continued discussion and a motion for an award of contract for the naturalization of the Valley View Pond. And here to present information on this item is our Deputy Village Manager, Mike Baker.
Thank you, Dave. This item recommends a motion for a contract with INCAP Incorporated of Sycamore, Illinois, in the amount of $569,740.50 for the design build work associated with the naturalization of the Valley View Pond. You'll recall that this was discussed extensively on June 19th and July 17th earlier this year, and after hearing an extensive amount of resident input, direction was given to work with the neighbors in that area to explore any other alternatives that could possibly be considered before coming back. We did just that, including a neighborhood meeting that was held on September 6th, where some additional alternatives were proposed that staff went, reviewed, and took a close look at. Ultimately, after carefully evaluating all the options that were available, determined that the original recommendation was in fact the most viable, and that's why you're seeing essentially the same contract that you saw back in June and July on this agenda. It should be noted, when we went back to the contractor, because of the slight delay, there was an increase in some of the pricing of approximately $20,000 that pushed up the contract price, so that's reflected in the amount that was indicated. If approved, this is a design build contract, I should say, so it would involve an extensive design and permitting process that would begin shortly after approval and take several months. And obviously there would be opportunities for the residents to have input and be informed throughout the design of the plans for this project. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Are there questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Hearing none, questions or comments from members of the Village Council, Commissioner Schnell?
Just clarification, when you talk about the residents being involved, are there going to be neighborhood meetings during the design phase so that they can, have some input, or how exactly is that going to work? I guess the best way, for residents to understand is to...
Yes, there will be neighborhood meetings. We will post updates and information on our website. We've had a page on the website that we've used to provide updated information. We'll continue to keep that page active and share that information with the residents so they're aware of the opportunities to participate.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions or comments? Just for those, sure, ma'am, if you have, please. If you could do us a favor, please just give us your name and address. We'd love to hear from you.
Diane Bida, 1171 Roby. Mayor, I had asked before the meeting I was speaking to you. You know how we're all opposed to the naturalization. What we would really like to know is, since it has not been maintained all these years, what's our guarantee that this naturalization is not going to grow 40 feet tall and nobody's going to touch it? Are there any specifications out there saying the height, the max height, what exactly is going to be put in, who's going to maintain it, and how it's going to be maintained?
Actually, based on our conversations earlier, that was going to be my question, but I saw you put your hand up, so I wanted to take yours first, and I'll just add to it. The question I think the neighborhood has, and I know you have the answer to, is once this area is naturalized, what will be the maintenance schedule going forward? What will be the standards for determining what maintenance is and what schedule will be done? Because I think there's a legitimate question in terms of going forward, can the maintenance of that area be done in a more neighborhood-friendly fashion than perhaps it had been done historically, not casting blame at anybody here today, but over time? I think that's a fair question. I suspect the answer is going to be that's going to be developed in conjunction with information exchanges with the neighborhood.
It is.
And then once one is established, folks will know what that is, and they'll have something they can point to advise us if we've fallen off track.
Yes, and I'll add to that that the permits that are required as part of this project that Mike mentioned were extensive, have a lot to do with the maintenance requirements. There are certain things we have to do over time to maintain it in a way consistent with the permit that will be issued by various agencies. So it's very important that the residents participate in the design portion of this so we can work with them to get the plant material within the bounds that we can work within as part of the permitting process. And one of the points of this is to make sure that we can have an area that's easier to maintain within the budgets that are typical of what we're used to seeing. So the whole point is that we can maintain this in a more sustainable fashion going forward.
Right, so there will be specifications for what maintenance will be.
Yes.
Those will be developed as part of this permitting process, and those will have to be met as part of the conditions of the permits.
Yes.
So there will not only be the village will have to step up to the plate on these and follow the maintenance, but there will be agencies such as, I suspect, the county, maybe not?
Now we've reached the end of my knowledge of this project, so if we want
anyway,
to...
there will be the permitting agencies to whom compliance will be required as well, because this work will be done under a permit, and it's not just the village, so there'll be other agencies that obviously we want to comply with the permits, but to the extent that there was an issue, these other agencies could also be another level of oversight, if you will. And we will then have not only a schedule for maintenance as part of this process, but we'll have to have a budget for this ongoing maintenance so that it will be done.
Okay, Mike, the naturalization that was done on Woodward, it looks like it's just totally overgrown weeds and just blowing all over the place, and that is like probably half of what our size is. Is that the kind of condition that we're going to have to look at?
I'm not familiar with the naturalized area in Woodward, so we can look into that.
We'll have to look at that area and then I think the answer is probably going to be no, but since this hasn't been designed yet, it's hard to say with certainty. But it'll have to be it'll have to be designed, and actually the design, is, like the village manager mentioned, is something that the neighborhood will be involved in. So you'll know what it's going to look like before that's
And since
finalized.
this summer, there has been no problems at all with that pond. I don't know if it's because of the construction on the street or whatever. Is there any way to delay this for a while longer?
Well, the short answer is sure, we could delay it forever, but this kind of goes back to the other comment I was going to make, and I didn't want to cut you off if you had other questions. But, you know, just to reset this issue, because we have talked about it a few times, we have multiple options here. One is to do nothing, and from what we've heard and from what we're facing, I don't think we have that as a realistic option, is to do nothing. We know that doing nothing only increases the problem and increases the cost. Just in the 4 months that we've delayed this decision, to try to see if there was an opportunity to explore other alternatives like a special service area, or whether there was any interest by the Downers Grove Park District. That's already resulted in an increased cost of $20,000 for the entire taxpayer body. The other option would be to restore it or bring it back to where it should be as a pond, but that's about double the cost of what we're looking at for naturalization, which is why that's not a realistic option, and it's not sustainable, more importantly. The naturalization is an option that we're looking at as the preferred one due to both the cost benefits as well as the sustainability, which is really the key. There was the option of perhaps having the neighborhood additionally contribute to keep it as a pond through a special service area like the one that we talked about a little bit earlier in another part of town, but understand that that's an option that's not going to bear fruit. And then I know there was some neighborhood conversations with members of the Park District about whether they might have any interest in acquiring that parcel as part of an extension of O'Brien Park. And my understanding is that that is not something the Park District decided would be consistent with their mission. I don't want to put words in their mouth. What they decided is what they decided, but the result is the same. So those are sort of the options that we've been playing with. So the short answer is I don't think we can just put this off forever, because I just think it means kicking the can down the road. And that would be one thing, but if it means additional problems, and maybe there weren't this year, but there could be some next year, but the real concern I have is we've already seen what waiting does in terms of increased costs. And eventually we're going to have to do something, and I think we're all being cognizant of the fact that we don't want to increase the costs unnecessarily. So that's, at least from my perspective, the answer to your question. I don't know if any of my colleagues have anything differently they'd like to say. Commissioner Rankin?
I was looking for it in the materials, but I do think that part of this contract is that for the next 3 years after the beginning of the project, this company will have to come back and look at the plantings and see what they need to add, and that's part of the maintenance. And then from then on, I think the villages would take over and maintain it appropriately. Am I right? Yes.
And actually, when would realistically, I'm not going to hold anybody to this, but when realistically would any work get started out there? Because it has to be designed, first of all. So I think there's going to be some, if you want to say, there's going to be some time between now and when it actually starts anyway. But now I have to defer to experts.
We are going to begin the design process, which will be simultaneously with permitting. It goes hand in hand. They'll meet with the permitting agencies, get some guidance, start some design, and submit permits. It could be, we're estimating 6 to 9 months. So it's possible we could start some construction in late 2013 and possibly even early 2014. It's really dependent on the permitting agencies and how long it takes them to issue the permits for it.
And who are you?
Thank you, Nan. Nan Newland, our Director of Public Works. Good, thank you, Nan.
And Nan, could you, sorry, within the contract itself, in those 3 years that NCAP have to maintain this, are there penalties associated with not meeting the standards set within the contract itself?
They are obligated to provide the village to meet our permitting requirements, and that part of that is to fulfill the monitoring and maintenance portion of the permit, which is the 3-year period. So they have to essentially establish the plantings that were put into the design and they have to flourish. So they don't just plant them, they have to go through this 3-year period to actually establish and show that they're viable. And so they're committed to the village to obtain satisfactorily the full permit, which is not just the planting of it, but the actual establishment of it. And
What if any penalties are there if they don't do that? I mean, it's easy to write into a contract. I mean, I've seen another project that we've talked about that, you know, supposedly this was all going to happen and it didn't. So I want to make sure that there's somehow guarantees in here that they will flourish and that will look decent and that the residents are not going to have to look at what most people would consider weeds.
We hold back a portion of their payment, and if they don't comply, then they don't get their money.
Okay, so that's...
Yeah, I was trying to find the percentage in the paragraph in the contract.
Okay, so within the 3-year period where they have to maintain it and make sure that they flourish, they, like the first year, they may receive something, and by the end of the 3rd year, they would then receive all their payments.
Right, we try to hold back in a manner consistent with the remaining workload to incentivize, and this is true for other similar contracts. So we use a holdback process.
Okay. But I think it's important for the residents to understand that this is just not you plant it and they're going to say they're going to maintain it, but that in actuality there's something there that will incentivize them to maintain it, which obviously is money. So
correct.
That's fine. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from members of the council? One second, sir. Let me just see if any members of the council have any other questions. Please, come to the podium, give us your name and address.
My name is Robert Traub. I live at 1181 Roby. One of the concerns of the group of neighbors that live around the pond is not only maintenance of the growth or the stuff that's going to be growing, is what is the village going to do to keep that pond, or it's not a pond anymore, to keep the growth clean of debris. Now, on a windy garbage collection day, we have newspapers flying around all over the place, and the papers finally get over to the shore, and we just pick them up off the shore. But now when we have all these plants growing up, the newspapers are going to be collected by the plants, and if it's a swampy area, we can't get to it to clean it up. So our question is, besides maintenance of the plants, how do you maintain the aesthetics of the area?
Fair question, and I would once again hazard a guess that as part of the specifications and the permitting process, maintenance will include not just maintenance in terms of the health and vibrancy of the natural plants, but also the overall maintenance of the site.
we will be monitoring the site as a staff from the village. You're seeing more and more of these types of facilities in the village. Second and Cumner, other projects that the village has established the last couple of years, and we will be working with our staff as well as our contractors to monitor the sites, routinely collect materials, and keep the sites looking good through either contracting or village staff.
So in short, you've had some experience with this lately. Thank you, Nan. Other questions or comments from either members of the village council or any other members of the audience on this topic? All right, thank you. And then we won't be voting on this until December.
December 4th, correct.
All right, thank you. Next item, please.
Is consideration of an ordinance adopting the 2012 edition of the International Energy Conservation Code, and Tom Dabrunner has additional information on this agenda item.
Good evening again. Ordinance have been prepared, amending portions of Chapter 7 of the Municipal Code, adopting the International Code Council's 2012 International Energy Conservation Code, per state of Illinois mandate, and staff is recommending approval on the December 4th active agenda. Currently, the current ICC building codes in the village were adopted in 2009. They are from the 2006 edition of the ICC building codes, International Code Council codes. And that's the code set that, to a large extent, the village subscribes to. At that time, the state had mandated use of the 2009 International Energy Conservation Code, which, of course, given the mandate, we did adopt that as well. The new law, which was came about in August of this year, mandates use of the 2012 International Energy Conservation Code beginning January 1st. So what is before you would amend all the references to the 2009 IECC in our municipal code and changes them to 2012. There are some differences, though, that I'd like to highlight. First of all, tighter, more insulated building envelopes are required, better performing windows. There are performance testing requirements now for both residential and commercial. Improved mechanical ventilation for residential, greater lighting efficiencies are required, more precise equipment sizing, and there is some reorganization of the book to make it easier for builders, architects, reviewers, the rest of us to review and use. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. There are a few other items that were listed in the report, but relatively minor. It's a mandate. Did I say that again? Can I say that again? Really, it's clarifying the code for use by the customer so that they know clearly what codes we're using and clarifying it for us as well.
So we're adopting it whether we like it or not.
Well, yeah, to a large extent, yes, and in fact, even if we don't adopt it, it is mandated. These are the plans that we will get, assuming the architect is reading state law as well. So,
understood. Thank you, Mr. Dave Renner. Any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Questions or comments from the village council? Commissioner Schnell?
Does this only apply to new build, or does it apply to substantial, renovation?
Well, substantial renovations and pretty much every time there's a new HVAC system installed, so it has some potential implications broader than just new construction.
So if you put in a new HVAC discount?
Correct.
After next year?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Barnett?
I just want to underscore again, because it seems to be something I, for whatever reason, relish doing. For the record, this is a decision that adds cost, adds burden, adds complexity to those residents that want to do, and businesses that want to do building, construction projects, upgrades in their home, and it was decided in Springfield. I'm sure there's some value in all of the ECC work that's done, worldwide, with the idea of trying to improve, frankly, all of our lot as we go forward. But some of the effect of mandates at the absolute micro-local levels are painful. And so as our residents go forward in 2013 and they get these various requirements put on them, I hope some of them remember that it wasn't exactly something vetted at the local level by their most closely elected representatives. It's a challenge. It's something we deal with every week, every month, every day around here, and it's a real burden, and I'm kind of disappointed by it, but it is, as Tom indicated, it really almost is clerical at our end at this point. So, thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner, for reminding everyone of that, because it is a layer of burden, as you point out. Commissioner Durkin?
Yeah, I just want to point out that this is the energy side of it. This is not the total building code. This is just the energy side.
Correct. Simply one portion of,
The big
6
book.
inches of book,
The
yes.
construction Bible. Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Rankin?
I was going to say some of the same comments as Commissioner Barnett, but the other thing we have to think about is how this affects the small business owner, the HVAC contractor. In this tough economy, he's going to have to decide, am I going to pass this on to my customers? Am I going to shoulder that cost to remain competitive? So, these types of mandates really do hurt not only the residents, but our residents that are small business owners too. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next item, please.
The next and final item on our first reading agenda is consideration of, actually a collection of items that would implement the recently approved FY13 municipal budget. And Mike Baker has the information on these items.
Thank you, Dave. An ordinance and resolutions have been prepared to address several items, as Dave said, related to the implementation of the fiscal year 2013 budget. The council approved the budget just last week on November 13th after a very extensive open process that involved several public meetings and extensive discussion on the budget. That budget was also based on a long-range financial plan document that laid out kind of the long-term direction from a financial perspective that the village is heading. And many of the items that are being considered here this evening are originated from those planning efforts. More specifically, what's included, and I'll run through the list very briefly, but the items that make up the implementation action include an increase in water rates that's based on and consistent with the water rate study that was conducted a couple of years ago. Updates to the compensation plan, which are consistent with the budget and in line with existing collective bargaining agreements, and some changes to the parking administration and the fees that will be charged for particularly the quarterly parking permits. And those changes were based in large part on the downtown parking study that was completed last year. So simply a lot of action that is required to be taken as a result of the adoption of the budget, but consistent with long-term planning efforts that this village has been undertaking for several years.
Thank you, Mr. Baker, for that summary. Any questions or comments on any of the implementation items that Mr. Baker described with respect to the fiscal 2013 budget? Questions or comments from the audience? Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Mike, you explained it quite well, that if you were following along over a long period of time through financial planning and our budget, the fact that we passed the budget last week, this had to be a done deal based on that budget that we passed. I did talk with the village manager about this, about the water rates, because recently on the news, the mayor next to the lake over there, who seems to own the water, announced his budget and his budget increase for water rates. So this supposedly takes into account what we already know that part of the pipeline is going to cost us.
Yes, because we actually pay and receive water and make payment to the DuPage Water Commission. And we received a notice dated November 14th that includes the rates to be charged for not only next year, but also 2014 and 2015 as well. And obviously it is subject to change because it's dependent on what the City of Chicago charges, but we have a pretty good understanding of what we think those rates will be, and our rate structure is consistent with these projections.
So we have our projections as for our fixed cost, our meter type rates, and then the water, as we always planned, is basically a pass-through. And we're not trying to anticipate or automatically budget items, but we're trying to get as close as we can to it, the actual cost of the water, and pass it through. So appreciate that, and I just wanted everybody out there to know that we're not trying to make money on water. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments? The council? As long as we're on water, and not to start a riot, but I'm sure that we are following the nascent efforts of some communities who, in response to the dramatic increases passed along by the City of Chicago via the DuPage Water Commission to participating municipalities, some municipalities in parts of DuPage and other counties are looking at potential alternatives, joining different coalitions to see if there might be ways where they can better control their future in terms of water supply. And I know we're following that as well as many of our neighbors, so we'll keep our eyes on that. I don't know if any of that is a realistic option yet. I think it's too early to tell, but certainly something worth stirring the pot on, in my opinion, rather than just simply saying, thank you, sir, may I have another.
Yes, we are monitoring those. We're participating in some of those discussions, and a lot of those discussions are happening at the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference, and we participate in those meetings.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of the council? Thank you.
I do have a comment.
Commissioner Durkin.
with my day job, I do have an opportunity to interact with a number of the different COGs. And I do know that that is a subject that is being discussed at all of them regarding the water rates. As a matter of fact, I was at the City Club luncheon earlier this week. It was a discussion about pensions, and the majority of the audience, a lot of the audience, were local mayors. And that was exactly something that was brought up. And as a matter of fact, a couple of them, and I sat with one, did not even drink the water on the table in a protest. Unfortunately, the mayor wasn't there himself, so I don't know what the purpose of that was, but hey, I commend him. He dined and ate pasta with no water, so it is, just so you know, I mean, there is a serious
Wonder how they cook that pasta with no water.
I don't know, maybe they bring it in from DuPage, I don't know, I have no idea. But anyway, the point is that it is being discussed, and I believe it was actually something that was on, I think it may have been an agenda, and you can clarify that, with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus last month when Mayor Emanuel was actually attended, I should say, the event. So maybe we can get a report out on that at a later time.
That's probably a good suggestion, Commissioner Durkin, and I suspect that, just from my own take on it, it's probably a little nascent to be talking about it in any great detail right now, but maybe at the appropriate time that would be, because you're right, there's a fair amount of unrest, if you will, on this topic, and there are attempts to explore other alternatives that even, either alternatives or something that would rein in what seems to be a lack of control and predictability for long-term costs, which are as vital as our water supply. And yes, there are a number of organizations that we participate in that are very active in this area, and we will continue to be active in it, but I think you're right. Maybe once it's appropriate, we have actually sufficient information to have an intelligent conversation on it, that would be a good idea. So appreciate that suggestion. Other questions or comments? All right, now we're at the end of our...
That ends our report, Mayor. Thank you.
The end of our first reading. Which brings us to item 9 on our agenda, the mayor's report. I have no report tonight. That turns it to item 10, the manager's report.
No report tonight, Mayor.
Village attorney?
I have a report, Mayor.
Always winning the trifecta.
I'm sorry. I only have 4 items, though, to present this evening. The first is an ordinance establishing a special service area number 4 in the Village of Downers Grove, an ordinance adopting the 2012 edition of the International Energy Conservation Code, an ordinance amending the water rates for 2013, and an ordinance amending parking permit fees. All 4 of these items will be on the December 4th agenda.
Thank you very much. Brings us to item 12, council member reports and new business, and let me break that down as I usually do and first ask, does anyone have any new business to propose? Hearing no new business, we'll go to council member reports. We'll start on the ends and work our way in. Commissioner Barnett?
Mayor, I have no particular reports, except that I wanted to wish my fellow residents of Downers Grove a happy Thanksgiving, and hopefully folks will have an opportunity to enjoy what seems like a little bit of nice weather to wrap up the fall for all the various events and gets-together and turkey bowls and local races and the like for the weekend. It should be a fun way to wrap up what's been, frankly, a very nice fall, and I hope everybody enjoys their family, friends, and neighbors and makes the most of it.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner Neustadt.
Thank you, Mayor. As we all know and have heard before, this weekend kicks off our Gingerbread Festival in downtown Downers Grove. Starting on Friday, the gingerbread manhunt will last from Friday all the way through till Sunday. There'll be all sorts of events in the downtown, including a procession to the tree lighting ceremony and tree lighting ceremony at about 4:20, 4:30 at the Main Street train station. Saturday includes all sorts of specials and gingerbread-themed contests in the downtown. Sunday there is, Breakfast with Santa will be at Emmett's in Ballydoyle. Also, there'll be complimentary carriage rides. You can board at 1028 Curtis from 1 to 4 p.m. Santa will be in his gingerbread house downtown all weekend, and there will be a Gingerbread Man for Christmas play presented by the Herrick Middle School Drama Club at the library at 2 p.m. All the way up till 3:30 on Sunday. So lots of great events in the downtown, a very vibrant downtown that we have. I'd also like to echo Commissioner Barnett's comments about Thanksgiving. We're very thankful to live in such a great community and have healthy and happy friends and family. But as we're enjoying our Thanksgiving meals, let's all be thankful for the folks that are at work that day. There'll be 3 shifts of police officers, an entire shift of the Downers Grove Fire Department, and probably others from this organization working hard to make sure our community is safe and secure while we're enjoying time with our friends and family. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and we'll see you in a few weeks. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Durkin.
Yes, just want to echo what all my colleagues have said. If you are traveling this holiday, please be safe. Love to have you back home, because we definitely need you here for the holiday season when we're all out shopping. Highly encourage you, there's 7 of us, plus all staff and every other resident in the neighborhood. Encourage you to please shop locally here in Downers Grove. Those sales tax dollars for everything that you buy here do help us out tremendously. We've illustrated that through our budget. We've shown you where the sales tax revenue is going. It's really imperative that we do shop here. We do know that we don't have everything, but if you can make an effort, please, we need every dollar we can get. And I know that other municipalities are saying the same thing to you, but I hope that we have the bigger magnet, so we're pulling you in over here. So happy Thanksgiving and safe travels.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Rankin?
No report, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Schnell?
I just have one thing. I'd like to congratulate Gabby Sims on winning the 100 freestyle at the Girls State Swim Championships over the weekend, and also to congratulate the Downers Grove North Girls Swimming Team for coming in 6th place. Major accomplishments all the way around, and I know they work really hard to get to where they got, and congratulations. It's a major feat to get to that point. So well done. Yeah, it is awesome. And happy Thanksgiving to one and all, and drive safe if you're driving anywhere.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Waldeck?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to ask for a little council indulgence here. Bear with me, please. It's tough. Little story. 20 years ago, about 20 years ago, I went in to apply for renew a driver's license. And you know they have these little lights on the side, and I had a little trouble getting that license. But I did get it, and I went to the doctor, and I found out that I had a condition known as retinitis pigmentosa, or RP. This condition is a retinal degenerative disease. It's a lot like macular degeneration, except instead of inside out, it's outside in. Imagine your vision being a television camera or a TV screen, and the lights on the side keep shutting off until finally it's reduced to, let's say, a tunnel, maybe a telescope, and then finally maybe a pinhole until it's all gone. So I got that diagnosis, and I got home and I said, thank heavens I live in Downers Grove. We have a commuter shuttle system. Someday when I lose my license, I'm still going to hopefully be able to get to and from work. Another sidelight, I know there were some comments on Patch about my support of the commuter buses. I've always supported it, no doubt about it. Anyway, shortly after that diagnosis, there was an advertisement in the Village Corner about a transportation committee that was going to be founded. And I thought, what a great opportunity to think about what happens when people in Downers Grove and DuPage County can't drive anymore. And so I applied for that committee. I was interviewed by Commissioner Schnell. So you can blame her for all of this. Anyway, and she informed me at that meeting, at that interview, that there was also a taxi subsidy program, a transportation subsidy program to help seniors and people with disabilities. And I got home, and I can't tell you how happy I was. I said, what a wonderful, forward-thinking community, a caring community that can help people maintain independence. And I thought it was fabulous. Well, anyway, long story short, I went to the meetings, and you start going to council meetings, and you start hearing about other issues, and you start getting involved, and then you start going to budget meetings. I mean, talk about being a meeting junkie, to go to a budget meeting, and especially on Saturdays. But anyway, I got really interested, and eventually I wound up running for council. And so that was 7.5 years ago. I hopefully used my experiences during this time. I tried to be just and consistent, and I tried very hard to work at this position. And now I'll fast forward a bit. The gentleman to my left here, the mayor, He was a commissioner, and he had decided at one point that he'd run for 2 terms, and that was it. It was an automatic out. And that was his decision. Well, you may recall some time ago, there was a vote on term limits. And I opposed term limits. I just figured that if you weren't doing your job, they'd either throw you out, the voters would throw you out, or if you were a true public servant, you'd at some point set aside your ego and you'd at least take a step back. And so I mentioned a few times, if you get these contracts, you get these reports on Friday, and you see what's coming up, and you have your questions on Monday, and you get answers on Tuesday, and you got your meetings, and you get these routines. And you look at these contracts, and I always said, if you can't look at a contract anew and try to look at it with fresh eyes, it's time to take a step back. Another indication is when people stop calling you by name and they start calling you by title, and you lose your name. And what's even worse is when they stop calling you by your title and they call you by name again as if it was a title. So then you know it's time to go. I looked ahead to our budget, our upcoming budget, and it's full of good, healthy core service stuff. And as you know, I've held up the Apple Core, and I always said I always believe in the whole app, the whole community. And the outlook is, it's basically a core services budget, so the outlook remains the same. And as I look ahead, I have an opportunity to help lead an organization that provides a unique model for providing seniors senior living facilities. And that's an opportunity I'm really looking forward to. I also, longer than I've been up here, I belong to a county-wide organization that provides paratransit, that's transportation subsidy for seniors and people with disabilities. And it's a county-wide organization. I chaired it for a few years. I gave it up because you want other people and new ideas. And now I'm back on that executive committee. And over the years, PACE has used that model that we created to run paratransit in the city of Chicago. Our model has also been duplicated or spreading out into Kane and Will counties. Also, there's a number of DuPage communities that are putting their systems in place and are interested in this type of a paratransit model, and they see their communities as a whole apple. They see a value not in handing out and creating dependence, but helping people be as independent as they can be, and they look at that as making their communities healthier, wealthier, and happier, and that there's just not enough 5K walks and runs and politicians doing pancake breakfasts and all those types of things that can fill those types of needs. And these communities look at that as an opportunity. So I look at that. So I think it's time to take a step back. You'll notice I'm not out there getting any petitions. I'm not running. I'm announcing that someone else who's interested in public service might be interested in this seat. If they were looking at it and they had any fears of incumbency, at least they know that there'll be one chair available in the upcoming elections. And I'm announcing this tonight because technically you only need 55 signatures. And there's still time to go out and get 55 signatures, and I bet if you can't get 55 signatures by the deadline, chances are you're not going to make it. I thank everybody for the opportunity, and I just think it's time to take a step back. I thought about this 8 years ago over a Thanksgiving dinner. Thanksgiving's coming up, so I will have different conversations at the Thanksgiving table this year, and hopefully some people out there will have a different conversation at their dinner about what they might be able to do for public service and return some of the blessings that they have to our great community. So with that, Mayor, I thank you, and I wish everybody a safe and happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Normally I'd scold you for treading dangerously close to something that would maybe border on discussing candidacy or office, but since you just sort of removed that, then I guess it's more difficult to do. But so we'll let it slide this time.
There's no campaign.
Well, if you're not a candidate, you're not campaigning. Not quite sure how to follow that one, but I guess we'll talk when the time is appropriate. So at any rate, I do have a couple things I want to add. One, as was mentioned by, well, let me start with this. You mentioned 5K walks. There's actually a pretty important one coming up on Thanksgiving morning. The only way to burn off all that Thanksgiving indulgence is to, of course, participate in the 9th annual Bonfield Express 5K run walk, which I know the organizers are very pleased to report has already shattered the record from last year's registration, with over 5,100 people signed up to participate, which is truly an amazing thing when you can go for a run in your downtown, your hometown, with 5,000 or so of your closest friends. That's pretty neat. And that kicks off at 8 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning. In the downtown, there's a new course this year. It'll go by, I know we're going to go right by Commissioner Barnett's home, so make sure you wave. And a couple other key spots in town, like Fire Station 2. That's always a great event, and it's really a tradition that has ensconced itself in Downers Grove and bringing neighbors together, both ones who live here and ones who don't or used to. So we'll look forward to seeing a lot of people there. The tree lighting ceremony, as Commissioner Neustadt mentioned, is on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, at 4:30, I believe, is the ceremony. And the tree was donated by the Danko family, so we want to thank them very much for donating that. And once again, there are a tremendous amount of handmade, contributed ornaments from the community. Over 1,000 ornaments on that tree. So make sure you see that in all its glory when it gets lit up on Friday. And I won't repeat all the other activities that Commissioner Neustadt described, although I do want to make a plug for one of our own who's returning for her annual concert at Downers Grove North on Saturday, Thanksgiving weekend at 8 p.m. Muriel Anderson, guitar virtuoso, will be performing at the Clarence Johnson Auditorium at Downers Grove North. And if you have never seen Miss Anderson perform, you are truly missing something, because she's quite phenomenal. I'm planning on being there. I try to catch her whenever I can. And one of our own who've gone on to do more than well. A lot of other events this weekend. I won't repeat what my colleagues have said about making sure that you shop local and enjoy downtown Downers Grove. And then I will add my words to those of my colleagues in wishing all residents of Downers Grove a very safe and happy Thanksgiving. We truly have a tremendous amount to be thankful for here in Downers Grove, and I want to extend my wishes to all of you and your families for a wonderful and peaceful Thanksgiving, as well to our both immediate and extended Downers Grove family. Well, happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and we'll see you in December. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Happy Thanksgiving. Good night. We are adjourned.